The Audi S7 Sportback packs a 420 PS punch, a 7-speed S-tronic transmission, quattro 4-wheel drive, air suspension, and virtually all the brand's latest performance technology into a practical but exclusively styled 5-door coupe-style silhouette. It's a rare and tempting proposition for the money being asked. It wasn't very long ago that a car like this simply wouldn't have been possible. Ferrari-style power stats with 5-door family versatility. Vanishingly rare exclusivity and a hand-built interior, yet a price tag almost within executive reach. And perhaps most tellingly, rests to 62 miles an hour in under 5 seconds, yet a 30 miles to the gallon capability. Welcome to the Audi S7 Sportback. This, as you may already have guessed, is a performance flagship for the A7 Sportback range. This a 5-door coupe model line that Ingolstadt has created to challenge stylised executive contenders like BMW's 6 Series Gran Coupe and the Mercedes CLS class. I say a performance flagship. Actually, the performance flagship of the A7 range is the 560 PS RS7 Sportback model, a car which looks tempting but costs around 35% more than this S7 and uses essentially the same V8 bi-turbo petrol engine you'll find here to go, well, not very much faster. So, with a perfectly adequate 420 PS on tap, this S7 makes more sense. As long as you appreciate that any concept of sense and sensibility is somewhat relative when you're talking about a 4-litre petrol-powered executive fastback weighing around 2 tonnes. And in any case, if you really were being sensible and wanted a quick A7 Sportback model, the 3-litre bi-TDI quattro diesel version is significantly cheaper, 50% more economical, and just half a second slower from rest to 62 miles an hour. But we'll get into that as we go along. Bottom line is that this car delivers much of what you'll find in far more expensive, potently powered, stylised executive cars like, say, Porsche's Panamera 4S and BMW's 650i Gran Coupe for an awful lot less. Let's try it. So, what's it like? Well, very nice indeed, of course it is. You sit a touch lower than you would in, say, Audi's S6, and there's a more cosseting, sportier feel than you'd get in a rival BMW 650i Gran Coupe or Porsche Panamera. Grasp the lovely 3-spoke leather-stitched steering wheel, press the red-ringed start-stop button, and the twin-turbo 4-litre TFSI V8 burbles into life with a potent rumble as you flex your right foot over the stainless steel trim throttle pedal. You feel special, and there's a sense of anticipation for what might lie ahead. Once out on the open road, the quattro grip hurls you away from rest, regardless of whether the surface beneath you is wet or dry, with all 550 Newton meters of torque available low down in the rev range from just 1500 RPM. So you're very rapidly going very, very fast. Not quite as quickly, of course, as you would be going in the top 550 PS RS7 model that shares basically the same mechanicals, but fast enough to get within 0.8 of a second of that car's 0 to 62 mile an hour sprint time. 4.7 seconds is all it takes here. And the 420 PS that's provided beneath this long bonnet would be quite sufficient to nudge 190 miles an hour, were a spoil sport restrictor not to cut in at 155 miles an hour. But then speed you probably expected. Handling subtlety might be something you'd approach this car with a few more doubts about. Previous big-engined S-model Audi executive cars haven't had a reputation for being especially engaging to drive. Ingolstadt, though, has tried a bit harder with this one, and though the end result still isn't really Brands Hatch for the boardroom, it can now be rewarding to those who want extraordinarily rapid A to B journey times and really appreciate performance by stealth. So let's talk about the ingredients for this. A Tiptronic automatic 7-speed gearbox with F1 style gearshift paddles and some of the most sophisticated traction control electronics yet devised. A quattro 4-wheel drive layout with a driver orientated rearward bias, and for the corners a self-locking differential with a sport differential on the rear axle. Thanks to this, during hard driving, the lion's share of the power flows to the outside wheel to literally push the car through the bend. And there's more, much more. This S7 gets air suspension too, a lowered setup featuring variable damping, which can alter the ride height of the body between 3 levels for what Audi hopes is a multifaceted driving experience. It's designed to perfectly complement the optional dynamic steering that adapts both its ratio and boost according to speed and uses slight, nearly imperceptible steering corrections to stabilise handling at the cornering limit. It improves the standard, rather lifeless setup, but it's still a touch synthetic in its responses. Drive this car in the intended manner and you'll have selected the most focused of the modes available via the Audi Drive Select system. That's dynamic. Or indeed set up your S7 for ultimate performance like a race driver would set up his race car via the individual settings. If you're really throwing the thing about, you might want to switch the ESP stability control into its interim sports setting, which will give you a little more opposite lock leeway before all of the stability and traction controls kick in. But of course, on our traffic-clogged roads, the opportunities for such behaviour are usually few and far between. Normally you'll want to settle back and switch the system into auto, so it can adapt to your driving circumstances as the software thinks fit. Or perhaps you could click into one of the more easygoing settings, comfort for a magic carpet air suspended ride, or efficiency where all the vehicle's systems become frugally minded. It's when you're driving like this that you suddenly start to appreciate something. That this car is almost eerily quiet. And there's a reason for that. The engine deactivates 4 of its 8 cylinders for extra efficiency on part throttle at low speeds. At which point the car realises that you want greater refinement. In response, an active noise cancellation system cuts in. 4 microphones integrated into the headlining record noise in the cabin, which is then analysed by a computer. If that computer detects intrusive sound elements, it broadcasts an anti-phase sound through the stereo speakers, which combines with the intrusive noise and largely cancels it out. But of course, there are times when you do want noise, when you're powering through the gears and want to hear exactly what that twin-turbo V8 can do. Audi understands that too, so there's a sound actuator in the exhaust system to emphasise the sonorous note of this thumping 420 PS power plant under hard throttle. That only leaves the brakes. Audi offers owners the expensive option of high-performance ceramic discs, offering vastly improved temperature tolerance for the best possible resistance to brake fade and an operating life of up to 186,000 miles in everyday use, 4 times the lifespan of a steel disc. Just remember to budget for replacements. You'll buy this car because of what it says about its brand and because of what it says about you, with a look that's measured, efficient, sporting and quietly exclusive. The long bonnet, the long wheelbase and the short overhangs create perfect proportions, while the swooping roofline is reasonably successful in giving this 5-door model the character of a coupe. Subtle, eye-catching details around the single-frame grille, the front bumper, the side mirrors and the sills set the S7 apart from its humbler A7 stablemates. And there are more to be found as you move further back past the 19-inch wheels with their black calipers and appreciate bespoke touches around the rear bumper, the diffuser and the tailpipes. At motorway speeds, a rear spoiler extends from the rear hatch to improve stability. The interior is similarly restrained but impressive. everywhere you look, there's a beautiful blend of craftsmanship and technology, and a discreet reminder of what you bought, with illuminated door sill trims and displays for the MMI and driver information systems that highlight the S7 logo on startup. A red ring adorns the start-stop button with an aluminium clasp, the selector lever. The footrest, the pedals and the soft keys of the MMI operating system get a gleaming aluminium style finish. There's full leather, of course, and at the front, multi-way power adjustable sports seats designed exclusively for this model. The 3-spoke S Quattro steering wheel has colour contrasting stitching and a set of aluminium look shift paddles just behind it. Beyond them, you view a set of bespoke instruments featuring grey dials with white needles. Rear seat accommodation is equally beautifully trimmed, but the main drawback for me as a family man with 3 children is that on an S7 you don't get the option available on ordinary A7 Sportback models of a 3-person rear bench. If that's not an issue for you, then you'll find little else to criticise here. This car is, after all, a hefty 5 metres in length, so you'd expect 2 adults to be able to stretch out very comfortably here, as indeed they can. And luggage space? Well, at 535 litres, it's a little more than you get in a rival BMW 650i Gran Coupe or Porsche Panamera. There's also a ski hatch, and you can extend the whole affair to 1,390 litres by flattening the split-folding rear seats. Not far off, in other words, what you get with Audi's S6 Avant Estate, yet delivered in what many will feel is a more stylish body shape. In other words, you can see this S7's appeal. You'll probably need to allow a £65,000 budget for purchase of this S7 once you've provided for a few well-chosen extras. In considering this car, you'll probably have had one eye on the top RS7 version, where power from the V8 biturbo rises from 420 to 560 PS. But that model requires a premium of around £22,000 over this one, which seems an awful lot just to get from rest to 62 miles an hour less than a second faster. If you've done your homework, you'll probably have also considered the fact that you could have the same 420 PS V8 engine, Audi S model technology and 5-door versatility in the Ingolstadt company's S6 Avant Estate model for £5,000 or so less. But then the whole point of the A7 Sportback line is to satisfy those executives who need 5-door practicality but don't want an estate. All of which leaves this S7 Sportback looking like a reasonable buy, with its careful balance of power versus price and space versus style. It looks good against the direct opposition too, most of which is provided by BMW, courtesy of a couple of front-wheel drive models equipped with the Munich brand's 455 PS 4.4 litre V8. For 5-door versatility with this engine, you'd choose a 550i Gran Turismo M Sport for a couple of £1,000 less than you'd pay for this Audi. But it's a frumpy-looking thing that won't be as good to drive. Most executives would rather specify the same power plant in BMW's much smarter-looking 650i Gran Coupe. But that car in dynamic M Sport form will cost you another £13,000 more than an S7, and it only has 4 doors. With no comparably powerful Mercedes CLS class to compete against this particular Audi, the CLS 63 AMG is pitched more precisely at the RS7 model. The only other direct rival is Porsche's Panamera 4S. That car at least has the 4-wheel drive system that the BMW alternatives lack, plus it has the same 420 PS output as this S7 and the same 5-door layout. Problem is, though, it's around £24,000 more. If, having considered all of that, you conclude that it is an S7 that you really want, then you're going to need to know what's included in the standard buying proposition. We don't have all night, so I won't trouble you with the full equipment list, but I will pick out a few highlights. The gorgeous 19-inch 5-spoke alloy wheels, the sport differential that varies torque between the rear wheels as part of the quattro 4-wheel drive system, firing you through the bends, and the S Sport's adaptive air suspension, which works with the Drive Select system so that you can set the car up according to your mood. Then there are the creature comforts, the full Valcona leather interior with 12-way power-adjustable heated sports seats, and the satellite navigation system with its 6.5-inch folding colour display. But we haven't yet got to the stuff that'll really interest the technophobes. Take the optional mobile telephone preparation high with Audi Connect package that I have here. It transforms your S7 into a WLAN, that's wireless local area network, hotspot, so that passengers can surf the internet and email via their mobile devices. It also brings customised online services into the car, such as Google Point of Interest search by voice control, navigation with Google Earth Images, and Google Street View. Another useful feature is Audi Traffic Information Online that briefs you on traffic movements along your route. And the smartphone Audi Music Stream app that S7 drivers can use to receive more than 5,000 internet radio stations. If you think all of that's neat, then I think you'll agree with me that the standard satellite navigation system with its 60GB hard drive is especially clever. If your car has the necessary special module, it's potentially programmable in all kinds of clever ways that I think really set this car apart. For example, at night, if it's directed you to a crossroads, it'll widen the headlight beam so you can better see the junction. If it's directed you abroad, it'll tweak the headlamps for driving on the right and change the clock for you. If it's taking you uphill or around tight corners, it'll pre-warn the auto gearbox, so avoiding unnecessary gear changes for a smoother, more efficient journey. You can even use it to view Google Earth and get a picture of your destination at the same time as you check out Google News and weather and create in your car a mobile WLAN hotspot. As you can probably tell, I love gadgets. In fact, were I a potential buyer, I might be prepared to find a little more for some of the options fitted to this particular car. The head-up display so that you can get key driving information without taking your eyes off the road. It can even display speed limit signs as you pass them. Then there's the park assist system to guide you into tight spaces. The night vision assistant that helps you to better see objects and people in the dark. And Audi's adaptive cruise control setup with a stop and go function that on the motorway, for example, can, if necessary, automatically brake you right back to standstill, then off again. As for safety, well, I was a little surprised to find that you have to pay quite a lot extra for the Audi side assist system that stops you from dangerously pulling out to overtake another car, and the Audi active lane assist system that stops dozy drivers from veering out of their lanes on the highway. But as standard, you do get a more advanced braking system than you'll find on other A7s, even if you don't opt for the pricey extra cost carbon fibre ceramic discs. And a set of xenon headlamps you can specify with high beam assist that'll dip them automatically at night in the face of oncoming traffic. Plus, there are all the usual airbags and electronic assistance features for braking and traction that you'd expect. In addition, a stability control system with an extra sport setting to stop the electronics being too intrusive if you're driving hard. Now, you won't be expecting a big twin-turbo 4-litre petrol V8 to deliver affordably low running costs, so this S7's 29.4 miles to the gallon combined cycle fuel return might come as a pleasant surprise, even though that's slightly less than you'd achieve with directly comparable rivals, like the Porsche Panamera 4S and the BMW 650i Gran Coupe. Helping the Audi's cause is a stop-start system that cuts the engine when you don't need it, stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights, and a clever cylinder deactivation system that disengages 4 of the 8 cylinders under part load to maximise fuel efficiency. That also assists with a CO2 return that's hardly saintly, but at 225 grams per kilometre could be far worse. And I have to point out that you could improve your fuel economy by 50% and your CO2 returns by 25% by opting for an A7 Sportback 3-litre bi-TDI diesel model that's pretty much as fast as an S7. The bi-TDI would also be 2 groups lower on the insurance scale. An S7 is rated at Group 44. But fuel and emission returns probably won't be the most expensive part of S7 ownership. Up at this level, depreciation tends to have more of an impact. This particular Audi won't be as strong in this respect as more mainstream ones, but as long as you don't get too excitable with extra cost options at the initial ordering stage, it's possible to keep residuals in check and pretty close to the levels of the BMW and Porsche competition. Rarity value will help, given that S7 sales represent less than 1,000th of Audi UK's sales output. You're unlikely to ever see another one of these coming the other way. The S7 Sportback is a model meriting a measured approach, a sporting car rather than a sports car. Its blend of talents making it a mainstream A7 with a bit extra in hand, rather than a hard-riding RS-style Audi that's been tuned back a couple of notches. That in itself is no bad thing. You'll enjoy the S7 for its smooth ride, its effortless engine, the astonishing technology, and its slick shifting transmission. In other words, you'll enjoy it very much. There are obviously more efficient, fast executive 5-doors and sharper ones to drive, but none that quite share this model's package of power, practicality and panache. And it's one of the new breed of large executive Audi S model cars that have more about them than simply a big engine up front. A contender that might even surprise you if in the past you've limited your options with cars like this to brands like BMW and Porsche. Above all, it's a mature car. A model that doesn't have to try too hard, one that creeps in under the radar. Very desirable, very rare, and very, very Audi.